Our most common basic link is that we all inhabit this great planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal. John F. Kennedy. I have chosen John F. Kennedy for my informative speech because he not only was our country's 35th president, but he was the youngest elected president and the only Irish Catholic president in our nation's history. I have prepared for this speech by researching President Kennedy's short but profound life. There has always been a fascination with the Kennedy family, most notably John F. Kennedy. I have also, over the years, read many books and watched many documentaries on the life of JFK. This speech is going to examine President Kennedy's early life growing up in Massachusetts, to his short-lived time in the White House from 1961 to 1963, and ultimately his untimely death on November 22nd, 1963. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was the second of 9 children born in 1917 to Joseph and Rose Kennedy of Brookline, Massachusetts. The Kennedy family lived a life of privilege. However, this privileged life was not without its struggles. Miller Center states that John, or Jack as his family called him, was introduced to politics at a very young age, as his father was the ambassador to the United Kingdom. Persistent health problems plagued Jack throughout his childhood and through his adult years as well. In 1941, John Kennedy joined the U.S. Navy. He was sent to the South Pacific as commandant of the PT boat. During his service, he was awarded the Medal of Valor and the Purple Heart for saving his fellow service members. The History Channel states that also during this time, his older brother Joseph Jr. was killed during combat. Their father, Joseph Sr., tapped John to fulfill his brother's legacy of becoming president. As mentioned previously, John was immersed in politics at a very young age. In 1946, he was elected to Congress at the age of 29. He went on to serve 3 terms in the House of Representatives and 2 terms in the Senate. While ascending his political climb, JFK married Jacqueline Bouvier in 1953. They ultimately had 3 children, one of whom died in infancy in 1963. John had many ailments, including malaria that was brought home from the war, as well as Addison's disease that rendered him unable to lift his children. However, the Miller Center states that his public persona was one of health and vigor. While recovering from one of his many back surgeries, he wrote his second of 2 critically acclaimed books, Profiles in Courage, for which he won a Pulitzer Prize. However, it was later revealed that his longtime aide, Theodore Sorensen, had actually contributed to most of the work. Mr. Kennedy ran for vice president in 1956 alongside presidential hopeful Adlai Stevenson, but unfortunately they lost. However, his exposure during that campaign made him a serious contender for the 1960 Democratic presidential nomination. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. President John F. Kennedy at his January 20th, 1961 inaugural address. President Kennedy sought to get America moving again by initiating economic programs that would get people back to work. Most notably, he supported the civil rights movement and vigorously pursued equal rights for all citizens. Wikipedia and WhiteHouse.org state that during his brief time in the White House, President Kennedy had his share of accomplishments, failures, and scandals. His election into office increased public interest in the presidency. Due to his youth and good looks, people young and old were captivated by him. He launched the Peace Corps in March of 1961. However, the following month saw embarrassment for the Kennedy administration. In April, he ordered a band of Cuban exiles to attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro. This mission failed miserably. The White House, however, was buzzing with excitement once again when the first American was sent into outer space. The following May, success was again achieved in the race for space when John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth. While the public loved the Kennedy family, it was also a well-known secret that President Kennedy had affairs while in office. Most notoriously, he was known to have an affair with Marilyn Monroe. While his wife, First Lady Jackie Kennedy, was quickly becoming an international icon for style and grace, Her husband's rumors of infidelity ran rampant. A generation of Americans will forever remember where they were on November 22nd, 1963. President and Mrs. Kennedy embarked on a 2-day, 5-city fundraising trip to Texas on November 21st. On the morning of November 22nd, after spending the night in Fort Worth, President Kennedy took a short flight to Dallas to the Love Field Airport. Upon their arrival, President and Mrs. Kennedy jumped into the back seat of an open convertible to greet crowds along the 10-mile drive to the next speaking engagement. Governor John Connally and his wife boarded the convertible as well to accompany the president. An estimated 200,000 people lined the streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of the president and his wife. As the motorcade turned southwest on Elm Street and began traveling through Dealey Plaza, gunshots rang out from the direction of the Texas School Book Depository building at approximately 12:30 p.m. Britannica states that a bullet pierced the neck of the president and exited through his throat. After exiting the president, the bullet then struck Governor Connally. Another shot struck President Kennedy, this time in the back of the head. The president was rushed to Parkland Hospital, where he was ultimately pronounced dead at 1 o'clock p.m. A manhunt was immediately underway to find President John F. Kennedy's assassin. A rifle was found in the book depository belonging to Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald was eventually arrested for President Kennedy's assassination. He maintained his innocence, however, labeling himself a patsy or a scapegoat, if you will. Lee Harvey Oswald was in turn shot himself on November 24, 1963, as he was being transferred from the Dallas police station to the county jail. The following day, November 25, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. An eternal flame still flickers today at his gravesite. An investigation was launched, referred to as the Warren Commission. This study found that the shots that killed the president were fired from the 6th floor window of the book depository by Lee Harvey Oswald. The History Channel states that to this day, many still question the official ruling, instead suggesting that Oswald did not act alone. Additionally, many other parties have been claimed to have been involved in the assassination, including but not limited to organized crime, the CIA, and Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson himself. Another theory is that there was a second shooter in the grassy knoll. The CIA and FBI have been slowly releasing documentation concerning President Kennedy's assassination. The next deadline for the release of such documents is October 26, 2021. Britannica states that decades after President Kennedy's death, speculation continues and conspiracy theories still captivate this nation. President John F. Kennedy was born into a life of privilege to well-known parents involved in politics. However, plagued by a crippling illness, his life was not quite as idyllic as one would assume. After earning a Purple Heart for his bravery during World War II, Kennedy quickly became well-known in the political arena, and thereby earned the nomination for Democratic presidential candidate in 1960. He successfully won the presidency and was sworn in on January 20th, 1961. President Kennedy, his wife, and 2 children became known as the unofficial royal family during their time in the White House. On November 22, 1963, tragedy struck America's first family when John F. Kennedy was gunned down in Dallas, Texas. While his assassination was officially ruled to have involved a lone wolf, Lee Harvey Oswald, conspiracy theories still continue to this present day. John F. Kennedy was a remarkable man, and his legacy lives on today. Our nation has always been fascinated with his story, and I am no different. I have appreciated his way with words. He has a gift for making one feel as though they too can make a change in the world. I will leave you with my favorite quote of his, as I feel it is a fitting closure to this speech. A man may die, nations may rise and fall, but an idea lives on.